Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer from Joy of Stationery, and for today's video I have a pretty ambitious plan, which is to go over, hopefully a not too long overview of all the planners and techos that I used so far in 2023 as a kind of mid-year review and as a mid-year Techo Kaigi, which means a kind of planner meeting. And I wanted to do this on the heels of making the One Book July video, just to show you a little bit of what my process was of the number of techos and notebooks that I tried out in 2023. I do want to preface this by saying that because 2023, or going into 2023, it was going to be a big transition year for me, moving to a new country, moving to a new job and position, what I did was I wanted to allow myself the first half of the year really to experiment with different techos, different notebooks that I'd never tried before, and just kind of have the first half of the year be a time for experimenting with the idea that I would learn what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and perhaps get a better sense of or get closer to what my planning system is, which I'm glad to say I think has been the case, but only after much experimentation and much trying out of all of these things. So you can see there are a lot of things here, and I have to warn you that this is just Act 1. so what I've displayed out here is my original 2023 lineup. So going from December 2022 into January, this was sort of the plan for what I would be using. Two of the items on here, this beautiful Hobonichi A6 and this A6 / Pocket Leuchtturm were coming with me from the year prior, so from 2022. This was a Spring Start A6 original Techo, and so I wanted to kind of bring it in with me and see if I can finish it off by the next spring in 2023. And this is what I was using in December as a sort of kind of random notes, not particularly organized, commonplace book, but it was really working for me in December, and so I was bringing it with me into January to see if it would work for me. So maybe I'll just sort of start out with this. So you can see these are just some of the really cute digital stickers and kind of calendar sticker from Little Raven Ink, and it was just a cute way of injecting some life into this and to just make it fun for me. You can see I kind of was preparing it also for 2023 here, and this was the really cute calendar for January. But this was sort of a project that was working really kind of well for me as I was planning out what was going to be the big move. So logistically, but also in terms of the job as well, it was a way to just have a notebook that I could quickly pull out and jot down some quick notes, any little details that I might need, again, given the whole kind of transition situation. So notes about the visa process, for example, the steps that I needed to take for that, notes about looking for lodging. All of these kinds of logistics I found really helpful to just have a dedicated notebook where I can kind of just jot all these things down as a kind of quick reference. I think I said that it was kind of random, but there is a method to the madness insofar as I think I was really thinking about this as a way to not only just quickly jot down, but jot down the important kind of logistical information that could be a quick reference for me. And again, I ended up carrying this with me into 2023 as well, and it actually served me well for a kind of December, January book very, very well. So I really loved my experiment with this. This, as I mentioned, was a Spring Start Hobonichi A6 original, and it was a Spring Start because my birthday is actually in the spring, and so I thought that it would just be a really nice way to jumpstart kind of a year's worth of memories starting from my birthday, right? So the birthday in 2022, over into the next one. And so kind of documenting a year of my life, really. And it was a project that ended up working really, really well for me. As you can see, I really did fill this up, and it was so fun to do, and such a fun experiment. And I'll get to a later act in this video where I talk about my attempts to kind of do another one, right? Starting from my birthday in 2023. So I would say that because I brought these over, and these were both kind of successful experiments, right? Successful projects. They also finished very quickly in the year, right? So because this is an April start, it finished in March of this year, and so I was able to kind of finish this as a project. And this, again, as I mentioned, although I didn't necessarily fill the entire book, I filled up most of it with December and January, and that kind of led to what I'll introduce in the next act as my next attempt at doing a kind of random reference, quickly jot down pocket notebook, because this had worked so well for me in December and in January. So these other items here were brand new starts for me in 2023. And again, this is what I had kind of planned for my lineup. What I have here, and this is a beautiful cover by LolaStarryArt, a beautiful puzzle cover that I ended up getting once the year had began. But this is sort of housing, at the moment, my Midori Hibino, or Hibino. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I had really, really high hopes for this planner. And I loved kind of the subtle way I was decorating it. And I think that this is a really promising and really, really beautiful Techo. I think that what ended up being difficult for me was actually the 2mm grid. My handwriting tends to be really small anyway, and so I'm able to kind of fill up the grid, decently well. But I think because the grid is so small, there's a lot of space, right? And so it does, it is nice in that it helps to, it helps to give the sense of space even for a planner that's only in the A6 size. But because of that, I began to get overwhelmed with filling out, enough of the pages. And I know that there are some really wonderful accounts on Instagram with planners who have been doing such a beautiful job with the Hibino layouts, really, really beautifully done. And I think it just, it just got to the point where for me, even though I really love the concept of 2 days, 2 pages, right? 2 pages per day, you can see I stopped using it. Nonetheless, it ended up feeling more overwhelming for me than I initially thought that it would. I think also because it is a really cutely chunky planner, I realized, or I think kind of as the year has sort of passed, I realized that I think that what I need is kind of a planner system that's a little bit slimmer, a little bit more portable, just because, when you're at the beginning of the year here, I think, the bulk that you get on the other side ended up being a little bit difficult for me to sort of navigate, especially at the beginning of the year, and I imagine at the end of the year. As you can see here, at some point later on, because I had fallen off of it, I ended up putting this really quirky and fun sticker from, I believe it's PocketPam Designs, of this cute black cat on a pile of books. And it was a way, you know, I'll show you some others as well. It's a way for me to try to inject some fun back into it, inject some joy back into a notebook or a planner that I'm just not using anymore. So this was my attempt, but sadly, again, I just haven't kept up with this, and you know, for the reasons that I kind of mentioned, which aren't particularly, you know, bad reasons. I just wasn't able to kind of keep up with this particular one, and I found that it just wasn't working for me, which was really unfortunate because I did have high hopes for it. The other techos and notebooks that I started the year with are especially these two Hobonichi weeks. So this is the really vibrant hanataba cover, and this one is the oncle cover. And I liked both of these designs so much that my plan for this had been that I would use this as kind of my everyday planner, kind of planning out the weeks, scheduling things out. And then this I would make particular to a kind of a research planner and log book. I regret to say that that I've not actually kept up with these two. I still have them in the back of my mind as I'm trying to think through, especially now that I'm in kind of the mid-year range, you know, trying to figure out if the weeks is for me. I think, you know, I absolutely love the weeks, and I'll kind of speak to that later on in the video as well as I get kind of closer to the present moment. But I think I've still been trying to experiment with what kinds of weekly layouts work for me, you know, how to use the kind of weekly spread versus the blank page, right, on the other side, which is how the weeks is sort of set up here, right? And I've not yet cracked the code for myself. But at the same time, you know, there's so much that I do love about the weeks. I love the size, I love the portability. I also really, really love the Hobonichi clear cover on covers for the Hobonichi weeks, just because they've got, you know, these great pockets and things that just make it really, you know, useful to kind of keep various things with it. This, as I mentioned, was, you know, what I was using for my research notebook, and I think it suffered from the same problem that I was having with the everyday approach, which is that I've not yet cracked the code for the way that the page layout is provided. And mostly, and I'll speak to this later on, you know, as an academic who has to do a lot of writing, what I mainly wanted this for was to figure out a way to track my writing. As I mentioned in my One Book July video, I've now found a way to do that in a fun way, my little daily writing corner in the A6 Hobonichi avec that I reward myself with a gold star. So perhaps in a future iteration, I can do something like that with the weeks. But again, for now, these have sort of fallen out of use. I'm now trying to kind of brainstorm how to bring them back in the fold, potentially, you know, once July is over. And the last two books that I have here are this absolutely beautiful Paperblanks journal, and I love this cover so much. I think it's just so gorgeous, so beautiful. and the Hobonichi avec, and this is the first half of the year. So I'll speak to this first because this is the one I've really fallen out of, unfortunately. This was also really, really promising, and it harkens back to when I first had my first sort of long-term trip and kind of briefly moved to Paris a long time ago. My youngest sister had gifted me a Paperblanks journal. It was a little bit bigger, but was also just really, really gorgeous. And that really became my companion while I was living in France and navigating what was a challenging time, right? With being able to kind of communicate more fluently in the language, which I wasn't, just yet at that point, of, trying to find my way in a new country, learn the kind of customs and the culture, and really just kind of survive, right, in a country where I just hadn't grown up. And so because I was moving to a new country this time around, I found that I had gotten this and sort of hoarded it at some point, and I brought it out, dusted it off because it was so beautiful, and I thought, oh, this is so perfect. I'm moving to a new country, and so maybe I can kind of jumpstart a journaling practice with another absolutely beautiful Paperblanks journal. And I also decorated it with these beautiful, beautiful stickers from, I believe her name is Sibylline. Is the account on Instagram, and I want to say these were this is just kind of in her shop, and I'll try to link it below. But these beautiful, beautiful kind of diptych stickers here to again kind of welcome me into the journal. Unfortunately, it was very, very short-lived. So this is about as much as I've journaled in here. And I think in some ways it's because for a long time, I've not really been a lined notebook person. I do much prefer grid or square, or, dot grid or square grid. And I found that the paper, doesn't hold certain kinds of inks, quite as well as other papers do. For example, Hobonichi, but other brands as well. And so this quickly kind of fell out of use for those reasons. I do want to go back to it because it is so beautiful. So maybe there's a way that I can make this into a different kind of creative journal and make beautiful spreads within it. I think that might be a good idea for something like this. And I will say it's also not the notebook's fault. I think coming into the new year, I was sort of thrown right into kind of a new work situation that was also challenging to kind of learn the ropes at a completely new place with a completely new system. And so my journaling itself, ended up falling by the wayside. So, what I'm trying to do in the middle of the year now is to get back into a journaling routine and habit, as I think I've mentioned previously. And so, I'm glad that I still have this around, and that, I might still have ideas for how to make the most use of something as beautiful as this. And finally, this was, perhaps out of the others, in some ways the most successful experiment. This is the avec in the A6 size from Hobonichi. This is the January through June. I decorated it in the front with half of a postcard from LolaStarryArt's Patreon, just because I thought this was such a cute image, and I really wanted to kind of begin the year with this sort of cute, cozy, festive feel. And I have here, to kind of open the book. This is a photo that a new colleague of mine had taken of, what is now my new workplace, and I thought it was so beautiful, and I wanted to feel that it was a way to, welcome me to this to this new life that I was going to be having. Because I had the Midori Hibino as what I thought was going to be my main planner, this ended up being specific to work. And I used it to write down all the various meetings, things that I had to remember, deadlines for, various things related to my new workplace, as well as, a sense of the time schedule for the different weeks of the semester. And for the daily pages then, because I was trying to make it just about work, I did end up just kind of writing down, meetings that I had that day, and notes that were specific to meetings, and or the teaching that I had. So because of that, I found a number of things to be the case with this, which was that because I was using it, just for work, my weekend daily pages were not being filled up, right? And by work, I mean not just planning for work, but what I had to do sort of at work that day. So meeting notes, teaching prep notes and lesson plans, again, the schedule for various kinds of meetings and appointments related to work, or deadlines for forms that I had to kind of fill out. And so on the one hand, certain pages were not being used, but on the other hand, for things like lesson planning, course prep to some extent, notes on students' presentations, and meeting notes at times, I was finding that the space wasn't quite enough for that kind of note-taking. Again, some daily pages, could be used for those things. But again, often it was the case that I would go over into other days because I had to take more notes on various things. And so I kept it up for, I would say, most of the semester, and then fell off of it. As you know, for my one book July, I've now picked up the second half of the year, July through December. I have a different system for it. And so I'm really glad that at the end of the year, I will have the 2 books that I've used for similar but different purposes. The one I'm using now is much more focused, but I'm glad that I started off the year with this, and that I still had the other avec book to use and to pick up when I was ready for it. So ends Act 1. So these, again, were the planners and notebooks that I had used at the beginning of 2023, which were in my original lineup. And we'll see how things changed in Act 2.